in your own words, can you explain how you got dragged into this entire circus and drama involving Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, it's really very simple. A woman named Virginia Giuffre had told many people that she had sex with Jeffrey Epstein and sex with other people, but never told anybody that she had any encounters with me. In fact, she never told anybody she ever met me, because she had never met me. And, she told the FBI, she told journalists, never mentioning my name. She wrote a book manuscript in which she said she once saw me, but never met me. And then suddenly she meets her lawyers. She has a contingency fee with her lawyers, and the lawyers decide, according to her own words, to pressure her into naming me. And then at the same time that she names me publicly, her lawyers privately write to a multi-billionaire named Leslie Wexner and basically tell him, look, if you don't want to be Dershowitz, if you don't want to have your name put all over the newspapers of the world as somebody who had sex with a 17, 18, 19-year-old girl, she changed her birthdays all the time and her dates all the time, then there are ways of resolving this. And it was, as I said over and over again, part of an extortion plot. Wexner's wife used the term shakedown in talking to me. Wexner's lawyer used the word shakedown. They honestly believed it was a shakedown, as I did. So I want to state unequivocally, I'd never met the woman, never heard of her. Since the day I met Jeffrey Epstein, I've had sexual contact with one woman, my wife. That's it. I don't flirt. I don't touch people's hair. I don't do anything like that. She picked the wrong innocent person, and she should go to jail. She committed repeated perjury. In her own words, she perjured herself against Leslie Wexner. Leslie Wexner has denied, of course, that he had sex with her. She claimed she had sex with him 5 to 10 times and that he made her wear Victoria's Secret type lingerie. Her own lawyer, Brad Edwards, on television, you can see it on television, says, I've checked, I've investigated, and Leslie Wexner is telling the truth when he says he never had sex with her, never encountered her, never met her, and doesn't know anything about Epstein's conduct. So her own lawyer is essentially accusing her of perjury, and yet the media persists in believing her.
And why do you think that is? So I originally went into this case covering it from the angle of what the accusations were, and it was very, very standard. It wasn't until I looked into those accusations and I wondered, why aren't the media covering this? We had clear contradictions throughout her stay. I've actually highlighted over 100 altogether.
Forget about contradictions.
There are complete lies as well.
I'm talking about perjury.
Yeah.
I'm talking about her stating that she met Al Gore and Tipper Gore on Jeffrey Epstein's island, that she watched them, that she saw Jeffrey Epstein walk away with Al Gore. Al Gore never met Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah. He's never been on the island. All you have to do is call Al Gore. Yeah. All the law enforcement people have to do is call Al Gore. He'll tell them that she has committed perjury.
But why aren't the media...
With George Mitchell. Do the same thing with Bill Richardson. Do the same thing with Pritzker. Do the same thing with Cousteau. Do the same thing with all the people she's mentioned. She belongs in prison as a perjurer. She is much, much, much more guilty than anything alleged against Ghislaine Maxwell. Ghislaine Maxwell is alleged to have committed 2 counts of perjury on matters that were relatively peripheral to any investigation. She, on the other hand, committed perjury by falsely accusing innocent people of a horrible, heinous crime. Yeah. Why aren't the prosecutors going after her? Yeah. I went to the FBI. I went to the U.S. Attorney. I went to the District Attorney. I said, investigate me and investigate her. You decide who's telling the truth and prosecute the one who's committing perjury. They have not done so.
And why do you think that isn't? Why is that the case? Why are the media refusing to report on the fact, for instance, that Virginia has, as you say, committed perjury, but she also said that she'd been trafficked to foreign presidents? That was specifically on one of her affidavits, and yet later on she admitted that she'd never met him.
And a foreign prime minister. We know who the foreign prime minister is, David Barack. And David Barack has said it wasn't the case and threatened to sue if she ever said it outside of court pleadings, but she said it only in court pleadings. Look, I think everybody knows she's lying, but the Me Too movement prohibits the media from in any way inquiring into somebody who's an alleged victim. And look at what happened to ABC. So ABC was going to put her on back in 2015 or something like that. And I went to ABC and I said, here's the evidence. You can't put her on. You can't vouch for her credibility because here's what she said and here's what's false. And so they took her down, and they got criticized enormously for doing that. And then you get Netflix. Netflix puts her on. They know that her own lawyer has said she's wrong, simply wrong. Dershowitz couldn't have been in the places. That her own lawyer said she lied about Leslie Wexner. They knew that. They had all this material. They had the recording of her own lawyer. They had the recording of her best friend saying she was pressured into naming Alan Dershowitz. Netflix didn't run any of that. They just presented her as an absolutely, completely honest and credible person.
And what impact do you think that the media are having on, accusations against yourself and also the trial against Ghislaine Maxwell?
Well, first of all, the media is encouraging women to lie for money. And I have to tell you, I have a friend in California who says every day they're paying money to people who are coming in and saying, oh, this Hollywood star, that Hollywood producer, that, and everybody wants to just not be Dershowitz. So what they do is they pay off. Well, I will not pay this woman one penny, no matter what. I want to see her in prison. I want to see her lawyers disbarred. This is an ethical scam, and it's an outrage, and I am the victim. And people ought to understand that a man can be a victim here. There are women victims too. Cousteau, the granddaughter or the grandniece, I forget, of the famous explorer. She was also falsely accused. So, Virginia Giuffre doesn't limit herself. No, we've had
Heidi Klum. We've had Heidi Klum and a few other females that she's accused. Dubin, Eva, and all of them have actually. What I've noticed, for instance, when like yourself, the people who speak out and defend themselves, as you rightly should, she goes quite quiet on them later. She doesn't mention them as much in the press because she tends to focus on the people who just want to brush it under the carpet. They don't want the hassle.
Well, she's learned an important lesson too. The United States Attorney's Office could have used her as a witness in the Maxwell case and in the original Epstein case before he died. She was the central accuser. But they didn't use her as a witness because they know she's lying. They know they can't trust her. They know they can't ethically put her on. So they created this absurd indictment where they indicted for some things that happened in the 1990s and in the mid 2000s, but they never indicted for anything that happened during the time that Giuffre knew Epstein, because they know that if they lose Epstein, they can't use Giuffre. Because if they use Giuffre, they violate their ethics as professionals, and they know that the lawyers would just tear her apart by her prior false statements and her perjury. And so the only people who believe Giuffre are the media, and I don't think they believe her. I've had many media people saying, we don't believe her, we believe you, but we can't really say that.
Well, you mentioned that, and I actually contacted The Sun, which is one of the biggest newspapers over here, because they had printed a few months before a headline about Virginia at 17, etc., etc. The month later, they printed a headline, Virginia at 14 years old was etc., etc. So I went back, it was the same journalist, and their answer, I said, you knew the truth. You knew that that couldn't have been possible. It's not physically possible for her to have been that age. She couldn't have celebrated her 16th birthday on the island. Their answer to me was, it's what she said. That is literally what goes for journalism these days, is the fact a lady can say anything. Even if they know it's not true, it's printed. They don't even want to question the very just basics, and I find that quite worrying.
You can't remember vividly a